Hey everyone. I bet you landed here because you're living that Nigerian life abroad, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole world of possibilities, but let's be real. There's a lot to figure out too, especially when it comes to expectations from loved ones back home.
Yeah, you're juggling so much.
Exactly. And that's what this deep dive is all about. We're going deep into this book. You know fit, fence your village.
Catchy title, right?
It really is, and it's super relevant. It's like a roadmap for anyone trying to build a good life, financially, personally, the whole package, while managing those pressures from back home. We're talking about protecting your resources, building a solid foundation for yourself, but also keeping those relationships strong. It's a delicate balance.
It is, and what I find so interesting about this book is that it doesn't just focus on money. It dives into the whole cultural side of things, the emotions, the expectations, it's all intertwined.
Totally. And speaking of money, the book starts off strong with some financial wisdom. One of the first things that caught my eye was the advice on being careful with how much you're giving back, especially to family and friends. Right. And it's not about saying no to helping altogether. It's more about understanding that if you're constantly trying to fix everyone's problems, you could end up hurting yourself in the long run.
Yeah, you can't exactly help anyone if you're struggling yourself. It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. And it's a tough conversation to have, right? Because we're taught to be there for our loved ones, but the book makes this point about how sometimes that constant giving can actually create a cycle of dependence. And that's not good for anyone.
Makes sense. It reminds me of that whole oxygen mask on a plane situation. Secure your own mask first, then help others.
Perfect analogy. And part of that is setting boundaries, which, let's be honest, can be really hard when it comes to family. Have you ever felt that pressure to say yes to every request, even when you know you can't really afford it?
All the time.
Mm.
It's like this unspoken expectation that because you're abroad, you have all this money to spare. Which, by the way, is a whole other misconception that we should probably unpack at some
Yeah.
point.
We should, yeah. But back to boundaries. It's all about communication, right? Being open and honest with your family about your own financial goals and limitations.
So, like, actually having those tough conversations.
Yep. Explain that you're working towards your own future and that maybe there are other ways you can help besides just handing over cash, like connecting them with resources or helping them develop skills, empowering them.
Yeah, instead of just creating a temporary fix. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, another thing that really stood out to me in the book was the whole building wisely section. I gotta say, this part made me chuckle a bit.
Oh, yeah. This is where it gets real about those massive houses people feel pressured to build back home.
It's almost like a status symbol, like, look how successful I am. I built this giant house in my village.
Exactly. And the book really pushes us to examine that. Like, is it really about having a comfortable place for your family, or is it more about showing off? Because let's be honest, sometimes that need for validation can backfire.
Totally. Like, you might impress some people, but you could also create resentment from others. And suddenly you're stuck with this huge house that you might not even live in full time and a whole bunch of added pressure and expectations.
It's a lot to handle. And financially speaking, it's not always the smartest move. I mean, think about all the resources that go into building and maintaining a mansion. What if you invested that money in something that actually generated income?
Like, what if you built a smaller, more practical house and used the rest of the money to start a business?
Exactly. Or invested in property that appreciates over time. That's long-term thinking, building a solid foundation for yourself and your family.
I love that. Okay, there's another piece of advice that kind of surprised me. The book suggests that you keep your financial success low-key, especially when it comes to family and friends back home.
I know. It's almost like a cultural taboo, right? We're supposed to share our blessings, be open about our successes.
But the book argues that too much transparency can actually work against you. Like, if people think you have endless amounts of money, they might start making all sorts of demands.
Absolutely. You can become the go-to person for every financial need, and that can be really draining. Plus, it's not always about people wanting to take advantage. Sometimes it's just a lack of understanding about how hard you've worked for your money.
Like, that whole misconception that life abroad is easy and money grows on trees.
Yeah, and by being more discreet, you can protect yourself from that constant pressure
Yeah.
and also have more control over how you choose to help.
You're not shutting people out. You're just being strategic about your resources.
Mm.
Now, this next point really hit home for me. The book talks about the danger of trying to be the illustrious son, the one who everyone expects to solve all the problems back home.
Ah, yes, the hero complex. It's a classic trap, especially for those of us living abroad. Like, we feel this responsibility to give back and make it for our families.
But the book warns that trying to fix everything can actually be harmful in the long run.
It can lead to burnout, resentment, you name it. You can't possibly save everyone, and it's not fair to yourself to try.
Plus, it can create a sense of dependency. Like, people might stop trying to solve their own problems because they know you'll always come to the rescue.
And that doesn't help anyone in the long run. So what's the alternative?
Well, the book suggests focusing on sustainable solutions, like investing in education or supporting businesses that create jobs. It's about empowering people to help themselves.
Exactly. And sometimes that's the most impactful thing you can do. Okay, we've covered a lot, but I don't want to miss these last 2 points. The book really emphasizes the importance of gratitude, especially towards those who supported your journey.
Like those family members and friends who encouraged you to go abroad.
Yes. It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and forget to appreciate those who helped us get to where we are. But what's even more fascinating is that the book also talks about extending kindness to those who didn't help.
Really, even those who maybe doubted you or discouraged you.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that maybe their lack of support actually pushed you to work harder or become more independent. Turning that negativity into fuel for your ambition.
Ooh, okay. That's a powerful way to look at it. And then the book gets into some really deep stuff about family dynamics. It suggests that sometimes family members might prefer for you to stay abroad.
It's a tough pill to swallow, but the book argues that it's not always out of malice. Maybe they've come to rely on the financial support you send back. Or maybe they're afraid of what will happen if you return.
Hey, things might change.
Exactly. They might have to adjust to a new dynamic, and that can be scary. So it's about understanding those complexities and navigating them with compassion.
Wow, there's a lot to think about here. It all comes back to that balance, doesn't it? Being generous, but also protecting yourself, setting boundaries, communicating openly, and ultimately defining your own version of success.
So what does all this mean for you, the listener? Well, if you're a Nigerian living abroad, this book is like a must-read. It's full of wisdom and practical advice on how to navigate those tricky cultural expectations and build a life that feels good, both financially and emotionally. It's about finding a way to support your loved ones without losing yourself in the process.
And it's about remembering that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. Your journey is unique, and you get to define what success means for you. So as you move forward on your path, I encourage you to keep these insights in mind. Be kind to yourself, be strategic with your resources, and never be afraid to set those boundaries. And most importantly, keep those conversations going with your loved ones. Open, honest communication is key to building strong relationships that can weather any storm.
Yeah, it's a long game, right? Success is a marathon, not a sprint. And this book is like having a coach in your corner, guiding you every step of the way.
I love that analogy. So if you're ready to take your journey to the next level, I highly recommend checking out You Know Fit Fence Your Village. It's a game changer, folks.
And after you've had a chance to digest it, I'd love for you to think about this. How can you create a version of success that honors your heritage, your personal goals, and your relationships? There's no right or wrong answer. It's all about finding what works for you.
That's such a great question to leave us with. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.
See ya!
Bye.